This is Half Serious, where we dig into the things that keep us going. Habits, hobbies, hell, even bad ideas, and the hard crap that nearly breaks us. Because life doesn't pull punches, and somewhere between the chaos and the craft, the dichotomy of life teaches us a lesson. We laugh, we curse, and we keep freaking going. So pour a drink or start your marathon, and let's get into it. In this episode, we talk to Ildi Seike, or better known as Swimplify on social media. She began swimming when she was 3 in Budapest, Hungary, when it was still under the communist regime, and then moved here to the States at 17. Now, needless to say, there's a long freaking journey amongst the whole story of it all, but to give you the cliff notes, what amazes me most about her whole story is that swimming could have turned into something that she absolutely hated because of the experiences that she had as a child in it, but she's turned it back around into something that she loved and has now become an influential member on social media to get master swimmers or swimmers in general just to love and appreciate the sport in the way that we should. So without alluding to any more of her story, here it is. And this is one of the few I think that I've been on where I just forget to freaking talk, because I could listen to her TED Talk, her whole story. I would tell it, I just wouldn't give names and like stuff like that maybe, but I'm still very much so just into telling other people's stories now, and it's kind of like living vicariously through everybody else, getting to tell theirs, I guess.
Wow.
But I
can't imagine what you've been through.
But it's been fun in a really crazy way. Like, so I feel like in athletics, you get to see people function in athleticism, you know, like that high-level athleticism. Mm-hmm. But then in this realm, I got to see them function through just trudging through ultimate shit, right? Mm-hmm. It was like, hey, all of this crap has happened, but people are still moving forward and getting the job done. And it's cool to see how much a person can just keep going. So it's very cool. I got to work around a lot of really cool people.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. I'm so impressed. Someone should interview you for your podcast.
No, I got to work around a bunch of cool people. So kind of like swimming. I never really made it to the top tier. I just got to be around a lot of the top tier. It's a good way to continually humble you.
Oh, I know. I surround myself. Nothing like surrounding yourself with intelligent people to feel dumb. That's my life.
Where I'm like, oh, I ran 5 miles. Or like, I did an ultra. I'm like, well, fine.
There's always someone out there who's better, faster, smarter.
Yep. It's always just getting to that next level. Oh, well.
Such is life.
All right.
Here we are. Okay.
Where are you from? What's your name?
So my name is Ildi Seike, last name. And I know it looks scarier than it is. When I used to be a teacher, like, all right, let's say it. S-A-Y-K-A-Y, like saying a K. I used to compare myself to Louis C.K. because the same last name, but after everything went down, I'm like, maybe that's not a good reference. My first year in the U.S., like, people dragged me to, like, this is kind of creepy. I was at Mercersburg Academy, and people like, oh. And they thought they're being kind. They dragged me to a cemetery, and they showed me a grave with a Seike on it, and like, is this your family? I'm like, okay, no. But it's like, my last name is like literally like, you know, like Johnson, like very common Hungarian name. But yeah, so I came here around, when I was 16, I came here to finish high school. I repeated a year to learn the English language. I came here with like barely speaking English.
That's impressive alone.
Oh,
like,
it was rough.
I can't even understand the English language. So the fact that you had to learn it from scratch.
I tell you what, it was so rough, so like traumatizing. I still remember my first, like history essay. It was a combination of history and English essay. And it took me 3 months to like feel like, okay, I understand what's going on. But like junior year high school is usually the most important in the U.S. and you're taking
most awkward.
And the most awkward it was. So yeah, it was rough. But that's why I repeated a year. So my goal was to try to get a scholarship here to swim and stay. And I got really lucky. My high school coach, Pete Williams, was an alumni of Michigan State. He was actually an alternate when they still took the alternate back in the day. He was a 400 IMer. So he hooked me up with Richard Bader. Originally, I always tell this story. They had their sight on another girl from Croatia, Tinka, one of my friends. But she ended up going to Brown, so lucky me. They're like, there's another girl. So I never forget the first time I met Coach G, right? I was at junior nationals and I was, dumb foreigner, like, like going over there, like, hey, G, I'm so excited. He's like, no, you cannot talk to me. Like I was not allowed to talk to him at that time. Maybe all the NCAA regulations and
That's what's just changed, right? Or something. I
yeah,
know
I
that they
think
can
it
recruit
has.
younger now.
Yeah, I think so because I remember I was my junior and he got really
Yeah.
mad at me. That was my first impression of G.
He's so just like not anger, he's just curt and to the point. So it's always like, oh God. And you're like, oh no, he's just being him. Like he's just very to the point with what he's saying.
Yeah, it didn't bother me because that's what I was used to. Like I grew up in very to the point coaching, but yeah, it was just fun encounter.
So you said you started when you were 3. What did that entail? Or even just like when I actually started training.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really remember much when you're 3, right?
Yeah.
I based those memories through stories that my parents tell me. But my brother, I have an older brother. He's 4 years older, and he was taking swim lessons. And apparently, one day, my mom took me there to pick my brother up, and the coach was like, "Hey, would you want to join us?" And I loved the water. I had the affinity, and I jumped in fully clothed. I mean, that's sealed the deal. So I started swim lessons with my brother. And I think that was it. By age 6, I was, competing. Like I have photos of like racing, no
Wow.
cap, no goggle, just
You're just committed.
just committed racing. And then in I think 1985. So what was that? I was 6, right? That's when a famous club opened up. No, there's a famous soccer club, and then they built a brand new facility, and then they started recruiting swimmers, and I joined when it actually opened. So I would say by that year, by 9, I was seriously training.
So how many hours a week includes like what you would call serious training?
I mean, I want to say like 4 or 5 hours a day. I mean, I remember doing doubles by then, like morning practices and afternoon
Wow.
practices, because I remember when I quit at 10. And
Dang.
there was a time I quit. I went home crying every day and told my dad, please let me quit. I just couldn't handle the fear and the pain. Like, it's just not about like getting hit, because that was like every day, right? The physical abuse was part of life in Hungary, but it's the fear of anticipation that makes, it's so much worse. Like that nut in your stomach, like, oh shit, I'm gonna get hit.
Yeah.
And then I think I just crumbled. I couldn't handle it. And I asked my dad, and he like begged me like, hey, just keep it with it, because I know you love it. And eventually I just had enough. And I took less than a year off. I went to row with my cousin, because she was she's older and she's really good at rowing. She's actually the Hungarian national champion. She ended up to be,
That's cool.
she's excuse my language, but badass.
Have you heard the other podcast?
Okay. I'm trying to keep it PG. But then we had a family friend who was also a coach who like told my dad. And I got ambushed, because I remember coming home one day and he was in the house and he was telling my dad that I need to come back to swim. And I guess I'm grateful for him, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gone back. But I ended up coming back a year later, and luckily the coach, because he's mad at me, right, because I quit, he put me to another group at that time. And he refused to talk to me. I think it took like 2 years before he actually said hi to me. Like literally walked by me. Never said hi.
Did you have good teammates that got you through it? Because I couldn't imagine. I'd invest so much in a coach. If they're an asshole, I'm just like, I'm done.
Yeah, but you don't, so that's the thing, like looking back, you as an adult, like, oh, he, what an asshole. But when you're a kid, you don't experience that. But he was like a father figure, right? Like, so you want to please this guy. Like, I spend more time with him than I would be with my family, right? Because you go to coaching, like you swim, and then you go to school, and then you go back to, practice, and then summer camps. He had summer camps, swim camps, but you're there for weeks on end. So he was like a father figure that. And then you feared him, because he came off, to be this, he called himself a doctor. He had a PhD. So like we were not allowed to get sick unless he told us we were sick. We had monthly teeth checks. Fingernails were dirty or not, right? So he was just like this
all controlling.
Yeah, he was all controlling, father figure. And then we started out, we had a huge group, but it trickled down to 5, I remember, because people like kept leaving. He kept like in through a process of elimination or fear. I never forget watching a girl pee herself out of fear. Or one of my good friends growing up, her brother had to brush his teeth, in front of everyone for months because he had dirty teeth. Like, why was the coach, in charge? The best 2 years of my life in Hungary for swimming is when I returned and I got another coach. Who he ended up firing. So, and by default, I ended up going back to the same coach I started out.
So did you know that you're going to keep going even though, well, I guess at the time, like you're talking about, you didn't know that that was technically abuse while it was happening. So at some point, did you recognize it and just decide, I like this sport enough, I think it's going to get me somewhere else and I'm going to keep going with it?
Yeah, it's a hard question because you don't ask those questions when you're that young, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't realize how young you are until you're an adult, and then you have nieces and nephews, and
Mhm.
like when they're 10, like what? Like
I know. How
what?
could I do that at 10?
Right? And then like that's when you realize like, wow, we were very, very young. And then also when you start something at 3, like so imagine Hungary back in the 80s. I think we were, we were still technically behind the Iron Curtain, right? Like
Yeah.
Soviet Union didn't fall till 1989, right? Like that's when the Iron
Mhm.
Curtain fell and like slowly started to change over. So like I still grew up with this like mentality of weaning out the weak, and you train, 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 and like whoever makes it through the selection process, right, is the one that's gonna be big time. Like I was a generation of Christina Egersegi, who most Americans probably don't know by now, but she won Olympics at 14, and then she proceeded to win, the backstroke
Mm.
events, 4 Olympics in a row. So like from a Hungarian perspective, if you're not all that by age of
Mhm.
12, you're nobody. You're not, you don't matter. But what I was trying to say with that is like when you start something at 3, it's becomes so much part of your life that it becomes one with your entire identity. So like, when you're 10, like you are a swimmer.
Mhm.
Like even schools, like the coaches put you in schools that, like that's catering for swimmers. Like you just like some of the kids, luckily I wasn't in a group anymore because I was not the favorite one. But the people, older, like a little bit older, they were literally pulled out and put in one school as, like that's their school. And like when they went to high school, like some of them are even do like, I don't even know what the term would be. Like it's not homeschooling, but they didn't go to school every day. Right.
Yeah.
So they had their homework, they did it, and they went in. Um, so it was very much like you are a swimmer, you're nobody else. So like for me, like whether to question whether I'm gonna quit or not, or what am I gonna do. I remember I was 15 or 16, and I just remember this coach pulled me aside. Like he asked me to meet him at this weight room, and like I going in like terrified, like God, what did I do? And you like
Mhm.
always have that mind, like what have I done? Because when you get pulled away, like pulled aside, it's like
Yeah.
what have I done? And you're like trying to, did I not do this? Did I do that? But then he pulled me aside and he's like, listen, you are. I don't remember. I think I was 12, I'm in a 228, 205. She's not bad for 12-year-olds in the 90s, right? Early 90s. So I was like, he's like, yeah, you might get a little bit faster, but let's face it, you're never going to be anything in swimming. So I have a
Wow.
friend who
And you were
does.
how old? 12?
No, at this time I was like maybe 15.
Jeez.
14, 15, because that was before I came to the US, right? So I came to the US, I was
Mhm.
17, but I did a summer program at 16. So it was before then. And it was basically telling me that I will never amount to anything. And there's no shame in that, basically, right? There is a friend of his who's doing a pentathlon. I think that's a pentathlon became big. And in my head, like, what, like, is that right? Do I have to ride a horse? Like I was like, what is that? And then he was thinking he's nice. Like looking back, like he wanted the best for me. Like, oh, why
Mhm.
don't you do another sport? Because basically you're nobody. But that's such a heart shattering, like looking back, like how people becoming talented or even good in their 20s or, early 30s. Like
Yeah.
hearing that as a 15-year-old, it's like, what else am I going to do if I'm not a swimming? So.
Did you think about it? Were you thinking about, I need to change sports? Or did you just...
Oh, I know. I broke down crying. I was hysterical. It's like I was begging him. Like I remember like he had so much power over me,
Mm.
over us, like please don't let me go. I don't want to go. I remember crying, like being devastated. Like I loved him, at that time. Like right now, I think
Yeah.
one of his most despised person in my mind. But at that time, I loved him because he was the center of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if they have that much influence over and you don't know what a good relationship is with a coach, yeah, I could
Mhm.
100% see that.
Yeah.
So and how did you end up in the States? At 17? Is that right?
Yeah, so I got, I'm one of those very, very lucky individuals because I think I hit rock bottom. Like I was in my sophomore year and I hated I hated. That's when I started, like, you're turning into a teenager. So you like have this
Yeah.
angst already, right? Like all those hormones
Yep.
are like swirling and you hate the world. And then I,
Uh-huh.
I hated going home. My parents were getting divorced and like they were having their own issues. My brother decided to take that angst out on me, right? Like he was chasing me with a
Mhm.
knife when we were kids. Like,
Like, I like how you say that, like, it's just generally, yeah, the good old times when he's chasing me with a knife.
we
Like,
had
it's
some violent battles, like glass shattering. Like he slapped me, I went after and broke the glass. Like, I mean, we definitely had some violent tendencies. So that's my home life. And then going to the pool is like, all right, which way am I gonna get hit today? Is he going to like hit me on the head, or is he going to make me kneel on the ground for 2 hours? Is he going to
God.
grab my hair? There is no safe space. And then you become this like, it take this inward, like, what am I going to do? Like, especially at
Yeah.
that age. So I was I'm still very close with my cousin. I call her my sister. So a lot of people think she's my sister, but she was 7 years older than I am. And at that time, she was seriously involved with someone, and he happened to be an American. And I don't know where it came from. Like, I just like, please have him help me. Like I need something, because it's either this or I think there was an opportunity to go to Israel for some swimmers.
Mhm.
And then he was like, I don't know, to this day, the altruism of that person who kind of paved the path for me. He put me into a 5-week summer program at the Hill School, which was his school. He went there. It was at that time still an all boys school. And it was just a 5 weeks, like that was my first exposure to English. And I came back to Hungary. And I said, please, please, I want to go back. I don't want to come back. And then he's like, I'll help you, but it's too late for the applications because end of summer, like, it's too late. So you have to,
Yeah.
let's do it again next year. And that's when I was going to my junior year and I was miserable. So like I forgot everything I learned in the 5 weeks of English. I stuck around, and then he paved the path for me. Like he sponsored me to Mercersburg my first year. And the second year, like we collectively, he sponsored and I got like a scholarship. He hooked me up to people who paid for me.
Do you still talk to him? And does he know that was a big deal?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't talk to him daily, but like over the years, I definitely stayed in touch. I dedicated my books. I wrote a book. I dedicated that to him.
Mhm.
And like that was, I don't know how faith works or if you believe in that, but at one point I was already living in California and went home to Hungary, and there's no direct flight to the US, so like you had to go through hubs. So I was going through Germany, like from Hungary to Germany and Germany to San Francisco. And he was on the same flight. I mean, it's just that of
What?
all the, like I was getting into the plane and there he sits. I'm like,
Wow.
and then that was the first time, like we were, I was hoping like he was trying to get me because of course he was flying first class and me in the back. But, he's like, can you, he asked the flight attendants and they said no. I'm like,
Ah.
but in the back of the plane, we were talking and he was like, this is the first time I can talk to you as an adult. Because, like I was
Yeah.
a teen and barely speaking English. So it was really nice to reunite randomly. I feel like I'm
That's
talking a lot. I'm sorry.
thoroughly enjoying it because it's kind of those things like I've known you through a third party, and then I've obviously seen you in the pool. I've known you for a little bit, but I've never actually gotten to hear you tell your story, and I've always been super curious. So I'm like sitting here like, oh my god, this is inspiring, and
Well, thank you.
not to downplay everything because I feel like I should say more colorful words there, but I'm gonna just leave it at that for now.
Oh, yeah. I have many colorful words, but, it didn't really, like you don't really, like, I have this quote and I can't remember the quote. I put it in my book and I can't remember this quote, but you don't realize if, like, it's something on the line, like you don't realize the effect of childhood until it's too late and it has left its mark. And, like I'm not playing the victim here. Like when I wrote my book, I kind of told those stories that I remembered, and I told it from the first person of the child because I am in no position to judge, and I let the reader, right, to take away, like the judgment or the reflection. Because when you're in it and you're growing up in it, like you don't have the privilege to compare it. Like I had never had the privilege to compare my life until I came to the US. Like, and the first shocking moment when like sitting in class and the teacher like asked me a question and he's like, what do you think? And I look at the teacher, I'm like, what do you mean what I mean? He's like, what's your opinion? I'm like, what? Like, you want to know my opinion? What universe is this? Is this a trick? Yeah, is this a trick question? So it took me like years, like, oh, wait, you really want to know? And then even like with Coach Mo is like, like he was like so famous, like, how did that feel? Like, Ryan, he always asked like, how did that feel? How does it feel? I'm like, what do you mean, how does it feel? Just tell me what to do.
Tell me what to feel.
And tell me what to feel, right? Like, it's such a privilege to born into a world where you can have that perspective and be able to compare, like, oh, this is wrong, or this is what I think, this is my opinion, and not just regurgitating the facts or what I have to remember. That's the world I grew up in.
What? That must have been a shock coming from there. And then I know you had some stuff in between, but going from that as a 16-year-old, and then you said you came here at 17, but then going to college and having, Coach Mull wasn't your main coach, right? It was G was your main coach, I think.
Yeah, so I didn't meet Coach Mull. I don't remember. Maybe end up maybe my sophomore year. My main was Richard Bader. I mean, I came to swim for Richard Bader, and then he left, so I was so mad, right? So
yep.
G wasn't really, I mean, G was coaching me, but I think Mo eventually came in and established the D group. I mean, my first impression, like he always makes fun of this. Like, we were swimming outside and then he comes up and he just looks down and he's like, great lines. I'm like, and I'm like, what a weirdo, right? So like, and he mentioned like, I was talking about your stroke, right? I'm like, oh.
Okay, that makes sense.
It took me, I mean, he had to explain like what he meant. I'm like, oh, okay. Great lines.
I can see him saying that to you as you're just getting ready to push off the wall and be like, what the crap is that? And then pushing off.
Yeah. But even like, I mean, I honestly did not come to terms and love the sport until so much later. Because even in college, I was just, I wanted someone to tell me. And when like I did rebel upon, like I was rebellious and I get angry at him, but it manifested differently. Like I manifested like the way, like how my Hungarian coach would react. Like we were doing this, and this is probably told you this a million times. It's one of his favorite stories. But we were doing 5-200s all out in 2 groups, right? So obviously I had to do fly. So I got...
Yeah, obviously.
So I was doing the first one, and he didn't he got mad at me because, I don't know, like my time did not match what he wanted. And he was like, get back up. And I'm like, everything flooded back from Hungary. I'm like, okay, I got back, and the second group, and I did again with the second group. And then he didn't say anything to me. But in my head, I'm like, you know what? Screw you. So I decided to get back up every time. So I ended up doing 10. And that was not his intention, but I was so mad. And then this is what my Hungarian coach would have done to me, like go back and do it again. And then he pulled this, you didn't have to do 10. I was like, I know, but I was mad.
Like, screw you. This is what I'm going to do. Yeah.
That was the most painful 10-200s all that fly I've ever done. But I did it.
I love it. I want to say he described you this way because when I didn't know you at first, I'd hear stories because I was a few years behind you or a couple of years. I don't really remember, honestly. I think, when did you graduate?
2002.
Oh, okay. So then I was coming in right as you were going out.
You were coming in, I was going out, yeah.
But I remember them being like, oh yeah, she used to have some bite to her or some fire to her. Something like that. Basically, I knew coming in as a freshman to not piss you off. I was like, all right, don't make her mad. But then I got to know you a little bit. I was like, she's really fun. I don't know what they're talking about, but it's probably from freshman year.
I don't know why I came across that way, but I think it's because, like, for many Americans coming here, like, swimming was just kind of a fun thing, right? Like, for someone who grew up in an environment I was explaining, for us, it's just train or die, right? Like, train or lose your life. In a sense, like, lose swimming or get reprimanded. So, like, for me, I was very, like, I'm here to train, leave me alone, right? And it's the same way I can explain is, like how a lot of college kids come in and they're first exposed to drinking. So there was so much drinking, right? Yeah. And I came to college and I was like, well, I've been drinking since I was 14. Like for me, this is not like we partied hard because that's the way we knew how to let steam off in Hungary, like how to let the anxiety. Like we drank so early, and there's no age restriction, and parents were like, we didn't have cell phones, so like we went away, we threw parties, right? Like one of the best things with my parents, they were divorced, is like my mom, went to, like, lived in another house, and she's like, oh, I'm going to Greece. My daddy didn't know. So I told my dad I'm going to her house to sleep. And through that 3-day rager, my mom, and I was like 15 years old, right? Exactly. So like my mom came back to a broken house. But I guess the comparison is like when you guys, when you come into college and you're drinking and partying, that's how I was with the angst and then the bite, because I was never able to talk back to my coach, or form an opinion with devastating consequences. So here am I, and then, Coach Mo had that, like, I loved him, right? Had this father figure, and then like, oh, I can talk back. So like they made fun of it because every time he gave us a hard set, I was like, fuck that. So like, right?
That's the bite, yeah.
That's the
because
bite.
it wasn't like, they didn't say it like in a bad way. It was just like, hey, she'll speak what she wants to speak. Like, I don't know. I guess it is because you just got that newfound identity and freedom and stuff, and it's like, oh my God.
I took it and I ran with it. It was
Good
just
for you.
such a blessing to be able to talk back. It's like, this feels so good.
I loved it because I was like, I've never seen anybody talk to a coach like that. Our coaches were like father figures in different ways, like in a like more caring, not as severe kind of way. But it was like, I've never yelled. I mean, I've never gone like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm like, oh man, this is interesting. It made the few seconds we got to chill on the wall so much more fun, especially with G, when sometimes he'd get mad too, and then Mole, he'd have his little quick snippets. And you're like, wait, is he mad or is he just saying something knowledgeable? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure this out right now.
But for me, I was just such a, like, coming up for, a fresh air. Like their bite is like a nibble, right? Like,
God, I'd hate to see your bite.
Yeah, compared to like, the coaches in Hungary.
God, yeah. So with that then, just coming back and having those kind of coaches, did you see like an adjustment in your training? Like you were able to train harder, or was it just pretty much the same, just a better off time? Like your mental state was better off when you weren't swimming?
Like when I was swimming with...
So like when you had those coaches that were pushing you to a different degree and like being really abusive really with it, do you think you trained harder then, or do you think you trained harder when you were able to have, a coach who would actually listen to you and you could, bite back at them if you wanted to, or you felt the need to? How do you think that adjusted your training? I mean, I know you're different ages, but
yeah, I don't think the training really changed, because it just, now you're doing it for someone else or something else, right? But you're still training hard. Like you're training hard for the Hungarian coach because you don't want to get hurt, right? Like it's the fear induced, but you're still training hard. Or you're training hard for that positive reinforcement. Like I went through stages of why I swam, right? Like it took me probably till my master's that I swam for me, right? Instead of for somebody else. But I was always a trained horse. Like I could train. Even in college, like I broke school records during dual meets, but it came to like big races, I choked. And I think that has to do with all that pressure and expectation and knowing, like I mean, I don't want to, again, I don't want to play the victim. In Hungary,
you are not playing a victim. Those are things that happen to you. You're not playing a victim.
Yeah, but it just kills the joy. It kills your self-esteem. When you're constantly told that you're not good enough, or or that you are just an irritant. It took me like yesterday. There's this famous Hungarian saying, like, but the coach used to tell me, like, I'm an irritant and he's just sick and tired of me, like that expression. And even in Hungarian, it's an old school. It took me till yesterday. Like I was just telling that story to someone. I'm like, I honestly don't know what that word means. So I had to look up, like, what is it's part of like the birds, like neck sack where the food goes. He like said that I'm part of that, that irritant. But it's just, like it takes me a very long time to like, all right, I swim because it makes me happy. And I'm not swimming for Coach Mo. I'm not swimming for a scholarship or for Richard Bader or G or Pete Williams or my coach in Hungary, or coaches in Hungary. I'm swimming because it makes me feel alive. It makes me feel better. It gives me opportunities to meet with amazing people. It makes me travel to places I would never go otherwise. And then it just cuts out the noise. I think it's the only sport. Like, that's why I hate advertisements who reach out to me like, do you want the the headphones underwater? Listen, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
only place, only time in my life when the noise goes away and I don't have to listen to anything or hear anything. It's
Yeah.
underwater, where you're just one with your thought and no one's talking to you. No one's there. Everything just falls away. And yeah, it took me 30 some years to appreciate that.
So oddly enough, that actually led into a question I was going to ask you, where it was about swimming and how there isn't any noise in it. I mean, it's really noisy because of the water and everything, but at the same time, it's completely silent. It's a weird play on noise, I guess. But where does your head go in those, especially with some of your longer swims, like your open water swims, or even just your longer distance events? Because I know you do some of the distance events too. I personally love watching you do the fly because I've never been able to do that. And you do it, to me, I'm like, that seems flawless. And she makes it look easy. But with the distance events and stuff or training, where does your head kind of go to, and how do you keep focused? Because for a lot of people, especially nowadays, they can't go without music or something for more than like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? Like, I think that's why I started loving open water, because there's no pressure. There's no same rate. Tuna fly is so objective. It's the time, you and the time, and it's the pressure of performing. But in open water, it doesn't matter. It's always different, right? Because the race could be in the ocean, the race could be in a lake, the race could be like in windy conditions, or the buoys move and it's shorter. So I love that no pressure, and I guess I sing a lot, right? It's kind of like have to get into that rhythm. I did this crazy race called Scar. I wanted to challenge.
Sounds crazy already.
So in this Arizona, it's a 4-day, 40-mile race, and Scar stands for like different lakes. So the Saguaro, Canyon, Apache, and Roosevelt lakes. And then each day
that's cool.
Is has this between 9.5. I think the first two was 8.5 and 9.5 the next. The third day was 17 miles, and last day was 10K in the dark, like you start at night. So it's like a challenging thing. I guess I like when my mind just goes nowhere. It's just so rare, right? Because for my life, cannot meditate. Have you ever tried like sit down and not think of anything? My mind,
I can't do it.
I can't even be at home alone without I either listen to my book or a TV go. But it's to the place like you're forced to that calmness is in the water. And when you're racing, because I'm crazy, that's my problem is that even if I do a 10K, I race it, right? Like I can't swim slow, I have to race. So you don't have time to think about your job. You don't have time to think about your conflicts. You're just thinking about your breath. Like you might sing, yeah, because 2.5 hours, 3 hours swimming is kind of boring.
Yeah. That's a lot.
But surprisingly, you're just in the moment, right? You think, I think a lot about my breathing or looking where I am, and then just, just that the sound of the water, that, what your hands make when you enter, and the sound of your exhale underwater. It's so hard to explain, because I love that my mind is not thinking about anything else for those 3 hours. So besides the singing, like in practice, right, you got to have I don't know, I remember, did you guys do that? I remember Michigan State, we always like, give me a song before we start the set, right?
Oh, yeah. Right? I forgot about that. Thanks, core memory.
I remember like the biggest one was like the Blinded by the Light, because we had big lights, and then every time like Blinded by the Light.
And then some asshole would say Macarena or some really crappy song.
Right?
Like, no!
Stop. Yeah, that's the worst, when you have a crappy song and you're stuck in your head. But honestly, your question is nowhere. Like, I love the most when I think of nothing. It's like pure meditation that I couldn't do on dry land.
And they say they listen to some podcast or something, and they actually talk about how important it is to not listen to anything, especially, if you just need to reset, go on a walk, don't plug in, don't listen to podcasts, do nothing. You listen to nothing. And I guess that is what swimming gives you. It just lets you zone out.
Because I could not, honestly, I could not do that on dry land. If you ever come to my place, like you won't find me quiet. Like I'm listening to something, podcast, books that I already listened to 10 times, because I need that stimulation.
Well, so going back to, I guess, the way our timeline's kind of going with swimming, now you've gotten done with college, what'd you do right after that?
I did take 6 years off, believe it or not. I had a 6-year hiatus. I don't know how much you know my personal story, but I did end up marrying Coach Mo's son out of college. And I moved out to California with him because he was training for the Olympics, I think. So Coach Mo talked a lot about his kids without really talking about, like, like in his stories.
Yeah.
There was a lot of alluding to the sons and
Yep.
then the niece, but he didn't really say the names. But so I was there for 2 years and I was training with him because why not, right? I went to a couple of nationals with him. And after that, we moved up to this very isolated place. He's still there. He loves it. But for me, it was just like suffocating. It's the most beautiful place that you have ever been. Like it's in the middle of the redwoods. But I'm that, Hungarian girl. I'm like, go, 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 right? Like I was just so lost there. So I didn't swim. And it took about 6 years, and I went through the darkest times of my life. Like I was just depressed. I didn't have a goal. I didn't have anything going on. I was switching jobs and careers, and I had to.
Do you think it was you were, I mean, obviously depression or being upset about stuff has to do with a lot of different things, but do you think not swimming contributed to it, or do you think that you didn't swim because of it? So do you think that
That's a good question. I don't know that. I think for a while I was just tired to be like, oh, you're the swimmer. Like I didn't have any other identity. So I was just trying to figure out like, okay, so I swam. When you start swimming at 3 years old, and you swim all the way through college, after college, I was like, what, 20, 22, 24 years old. And all I've done for the last 20 years is swim. So like you have to start thinking like, okay, if I'm not swimming, who am I or what am I?
Yeah.
And it took me 6 years of like, why am I resisting something that I love so much?
So did you get back in with the club out there, or where'd you start swimming again?
Yeah, so I did have like, a mental breakdown.
I feel like that's pivotal in everybody's life if they're going to succeed past their 20s.
Yeah. So I did the check divorce, I literally packed my car. I had like a Honda Civic, tiny, stick shift car, and anything that didn't fit in the car, I left it in California. I drove across the country in 3.5 days with a little detour of Michigan because I visited the malls, and then came to Boston where my cousin lives / sister, the blurry line of what we are. And then I decided to start over, and I went to Guam with a friend. So like starting over wasn't really that easy because when you're a teacher and you decide to quit your life in December, you can't really get a job.
Yeah,
so
that's rough.
Right, it was rough. So that I hit a rough patch, and one of my dearest friend lived in Michigan, still lives in Michigan. Now he's a professor there. He always took kids to random places in the summer, for a school trip. And I called him up. I'm like, are you doing anything? He's like, oh, I need a chaperone to Guam on it. So it was a 1-month ordeal. So we went there. He was at Adrian College at the time. And these were college kids, right? So it wasn't like, babysitting. But I learned to scuba dive and hike. And then there was a race there, a swim race. And then I did that swim race. It's Coco Crossing or something crazy like that. 1 or 2 miler, something like that. And I'm like, wow. That's when I started like, I love this. Why did I quit this? This is just so, so refreshing and so motivating. And I was like, in my head, I remember swimming across. I'm like, I'm going to do something big. What can I do? And then when I figured out that the Masters World's going to be in 2014 in Montreal, which is like 4-hour drive, I was like, oh, I'm going to go and, try to break a world record. Haven't happened. I've been chasing a world record ever since 2014. Every age group, like I keep falling short, like half a second to 1 second. But, those are so fast. Like I did not realize that world record was at 2:20.
Jeez.
And that was a 35 age group. And I'm like, it's so fast.
So what is it now in the age group you're in right now?
Well, see, like that was my rationale. Like I was at 2:22 and like, ooh, that's great. Like I age up and it only got slower by 2 seconds. And then COVID hit, so I couldn't really train. So I missed, in 2019, I missed it by half a second. And I ended up having a mono. So I swam a 2:24 with a 2:25.0 with mono. Who gets mono in their 40s, right? And I was a single adult, right? Like I was like seriously alone, not in a relationship. And I'm getting a kissing disease that usually college kids get in my 40s. And I was like so devastated. And I went to my doctor, like, who gets mono in their 40s? So like I missed it by half a second. And ever since I trained so hard, but your age, I hit 40 and it's so much harder. Like it's just so much harder. And it's still that last two age group between 224. And I can't come close to that.
Are there people that are that good? Is it, depth of the field, or are there just, those few elite
the few
that are
elite,
really
yeah.
good?
I mean, like, and that's the thing, like, unfortunately, and I'm sure, like, I'm the only one, so if anyone listens to it, I get a boot for this. But for World Championship Masters, you race by your age. And I wish it wasn't like that. Like, yes, get awarded by your age group. But why are you racing, right? Like, why can you race the times, the faster people, right? Because then you would have the push. So, like, for the last 8 years, and I know it's going to sound cocky, but I don't have anyone in my field who would push me. So it's really hard. Like, I've been swimming 200 butterfly alone, like, the last 8 years. Right. And then whenever I swim with like faster people, it pushes you, right? Like if someone next to you, you're going to be like, let's go. But it's tough, especially now that U.S. Masters, this last Nationals, decided to do the same. So you don't get the chance to race the time or the faster people. You're racing your age.
So are you basically racing yourself, just the clock in you?
Mm-hmm.
God,
Most of the time,
that's rough.
It's rough. It's been rough, but, I'm not complaining. I enjoy it. As long as I can get on the block and as long as I can do a 200 fly.
I mean, just saying, I couldn't do a 200 fly in my teens. So the fact that you're still racing to that level of 200 fly, hats off to you. That event alone is not... Now, the mile free sucks, but a 200 fly, it's like the whole... Just to have the discipline to actually keep the correct form. Like freestyle, you can kind of mess around, right? You get lazy. But butterfly, you cannot get lazy with the form or you just throw off the whole thing. And I could never... I'm not that graceful.
That third 50. Doesn't matter what you do, it just hurts. You just have to embrace the pain. It hurts more than my 10K. Like the 10 miles I did in Scar, a 2 fly hurts so much more within that less than 3 minutes versus 2.5 hours.
So then what's the worst race you've ever been a part of? Like either mentally, physically,
I don't think I have worse races. I think that Scar was mentally the most challenging race I've ever done. Because you know me, I'm competitive and I want to win. So like it started at day 1 and I left my field by 6 minutes and everyone like, who is she? What is she doing? Day 1 of 40 miles. I was just like, I had a rocket in me. Like I was just gonna go. And I sprinted that 2.5 hours like no other. And I was just, I was just high on life. Like, this is great. And then day 2 hit. I'm like, so like day 2, there was this incredible other woman there. And she was leading the whole time. And you know me, I'm like, oh my God. And then my coach came with me and he paddled, he kayaked next to me. And he is just go do your thing. And it's so hard when you race. Like I was just so over focusing on her. And the last mile, I beat her. Like I left her and I won. And again, I was like 2 days in, 3 hours, 2.5 each day, like hours. So like 5 hours of hardcore. And the next day hit. And that was supposed to be the 17 miles. So let me tell you about that day.
Yeah.
That was the day we had to get up really early and it was a lot cooler. And then each time they motorboat you to the end and they drop you in and then you swim the canyon or whatever you're doing. So we were staying the third day. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. Like dirt, you have to go like miles and miles, just dirt road just to get to this resort area. And resort in quotation marks if we are on video. But it's beautiful, right? So, but we started early because 17 miles for some people is going to take a super long time.
Yeah.
But you don't, your adrenaline is still like, you're pumping from those last 2 days. So you don't really realize how much pain your body is in. And I have never, like the longest race I've ever done prior to this was the 5K. Like I have never done anything remotely close. And now I'm like 20 miles in, right?
Dude,
so,
that is...
It was crazy. So we like I was not prepared. Like one of the guys on the boat gave me a pair of socks, so I can stay warm. So I'm already starting at really cold, right? And they had some mishap because the kayaks weren't there. So we're like waiting around. I'm cold, and it's like 8:00, 9 in the morning, and we're sitting around for the last 3 hours. Like, all right, ready to go. So they they're boating us up to this dam, like beautiful Roosevelt Dam. Like it's just breathtaking, and we jump in, and I thought I'm gonna die. It was so cold, right? And then this is me who does like I done my first ice race this year. Like I love cold. Like I've been training for. Hindsight,
That was a cool video. That watching you do that, I was like, I didn't even know this thing existed.
I know
This
it's
cool
so
little
fun.
lane.
It's so fun. Yeah, but this race, so it was 55 degrees, and I did not really, like I found out after that it starts, but it's only the start time because what they do with these lakes, they let from the dam, they let the fresh water out. And it's unpredictable when they do, but when they do, it's just cold freaking water, right? So, and then it eventually warms up. But now we are in, like, when some people were dilly-dallied and they weren't jumping off the boat. So in this 55 degrees, you're hovering, you're holding the buoys. I'm like, anyway, so we finally start. And I don't know if you know what Mo ever told you. I have this weird thing with my heart. I self-diagnosed because I never got to be diagnosed. It's irregular heartbeat. So like ever since I was 12 years old, when my body's exhausted, I'm tired, my heart jumps to like crazy speed. I wore a belt once and it stopped at 250. But it literally goes from like average, like when I at 120, 130, and it goes up to like 250. You can see through my suits. Like it's crazy. But what happens when that happens is I can't swim. Like I get, fatigued, a little dizzy, and I have to stop to let my heart settle back. So I started swimming, and like literally 10 minutes into it, I'm having this tachycardic episode. So I stop. But you're stopping in 55 degrees water, and I see the people pull away, right? And then in my head, like, oh my God, those are my competitions. I gotta win. And then I was like, all right, I can't push myself because I pass out. You can't push when your heart rate is just out of whack. Finally, my heart settles. I'm like, okay, I keep going. And then 10 minutes later, again, it starts. And now I know I'm in trouble. Like if I have two of these episodes back to back, my body is like, something is wrong. And again, I'm dilly-dallying, waiting for it to subside. And again, it's still 55 degrees. So at this point, like I can't shake the cold. I'm like shivering. And I keep going, and I just like, an hour and a half in, I just start hysterically crying. I don't know where it came from. I'm like, I can't breathe. I'm crying. And my coach, and I stop at the kayak and I hold on to the kayak and I'm just like heaving. And my coach is like, you're done. I'm like, no. So like, I know this was a super long story, but
no, it was a good story.
It's basically, that was the first time I had to give up something. Like I never, other than this, I only had one other race where my heart made me quit. That was with Coach Mo at Michigan. We had a race and my tachycardia happened on the block and I jumped in. I can't swim through those. But anyway, I got pulled from the race. And so like technically I can't call Scar as a finisher because an hour and a half in the third day, I got pulled. But I did show up for the fourth day, the Roosevelt one, and I didn't win that one. So 3 out of 4, I'm a winner, but I'm a loser because I did not finish. But that would say
so how many miles short did you end up being?
Well, pretty short, right? Like, and that was an hour and a half in for like an 8-hour swim or 7-hour swim. So I got, I'm like probably like 15 miles short.
Are you going to try it again?
No.
You think?
No.
You thought about it? Nope, done.
You know that so like I, hands down, like I have super respect for marathon swimmers. It's not for me, not the distance. I don't know how to swim slow. Right. And I think if you're a marathon swimmer and you're doing these crazy channel swims and, the 24-mile swims, you have to learn to pace, right? Because it's not feasible to go all out. I don't have a pace button. I go all out. So for me, I went all out on the 10K. I went all out on the 8.5. I don't think I would have survived the 17 going all out. So
No.
I don't think, if anything, I would love to go back just to that one lake and finish it so I can say I finished every single lake in Scar. But to do the whole Scar days over, no way.
I think maybe you know this, but my mom was a distance swimmer. And, she swam the Danube and she swam the Tennessee River, all that stuff. And I'd swim with her sometimes. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I can't do this. Because she just kind of chill and just cruise. But, it's 8 hours a day for 4 months. So I'm like, no, that's not something I care to do.
Neither. Yeah, I can. It's full respect. After doing that, like, marathon race, I'm like, yeah, full respect to people.
Yeah, no. That's a whole other level of mental fortitude that I know I will not accomplish in this lifetime.
And I do, and another thing too is like I don't mind being cold because I love the ice swim, but you're only cold for like, a few minutes unless you're doing a mile, which is crazy. I don't know how to be cold.
There's people that did a mile with that?
Oh yeah, there's a nice mile. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I people like think I'm crazy, but I can't be cold for a sustainable long period of time. Like that's just my body. I need more fat for that. And I don't want to get more fat, like you have to have insulation. Like you're not going to
Yep.
see any marathon swimmers who are skinny mini, right? Like because you need the insulation to be in the water, especially if it's below 60 degrees.
Yeah.
And I think
That's why they're a little layered up.
and I'm too vain. I think I'm like, my vanity is like, I already think I'm too chubby. Like I can't put that on. It's super vanity. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You can think of what you want to in your own body. I don't.
But again, I think that's also happened from, body shaming. We were body shamed all the time as kids. Like when you were too young, we were like, oh, we're not eating enough. And we were forced to eat other stories. Like I have a friend, and I remember this story because I just reconnected with him on social media. We were at a training camp, and we are still young enough that we were too skinny, right? We needed to eat. And he hated chickpeas. Like he hated the peas. Not chickpeas, green peas. Sorry,
Yeah.
green. It was
Oh,
green,
okay.
green peas. And he was forced to eat it, and we were forced to sit there. And we were at a swim meet, and then it came back out. Like he hated it so much that the whole thing came back out onto the plate, and we just had to sit through that. And I'm like,
So did they like restrict your diet then too? Were they like, no, yeah, this is what you're gonna eat, or would they just tell you, oh, you're too heavy, you're too light, and you'd have to, dictate what you ate from there?
he didn't restrict our diet, but it was I think it was more the commentary. So like again, I was lucky because I was not like I was always pretty skinny even as a teen. But there was one girl who she got weighed in every week or was it
Wow.
every day? Like she had I remember she had to step on the scale. And the other one like I remember comments like how does like these are the comments that stick with you after
No.
40 years. Like he's like, I don't understand how your father can feed you. Like you're like something like you are like a horse. Like how does your father afford to feed you all the time? She was just
Damn.
one of the. I'm telling you, that was the most beautiful woman on our team. Like she was so beautiful. Like not fat on her. Like she had bigger breasts like most swimmers, but she was just stunning. And the amount of commentary about her body and it was. So I think I still have a little bit of body shaming issues.
No, I think that's hard to like grow out of, right? Like
Yeah.
you try to be body positive and stuff, but especially in swimming, right? Like swimming,
Oh, yeah.
gymnastics, those kind of sports when it's just all there, like you're gonna see pretty much everything, So it's a hard sport to conceal your body in.
In a
So,
swimsuit, yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Even the ones, the knee skin or the full, it's still tight, still there.
Yeah. And
And
then your
nothing
boobs like fall out, and then you feel like so gross. Like, oh my God, my fat is just sticking out of
Let me
the
just
suit.
tuck those in real quick. Nothing's as humbling as like a race suit that you're just trying to like smush yourself into.
Oh my God,
It's like
that's so.
tucking yourself into it.
You want to hear one of my favorite stories?
Yes.
No, this is like no. I guess I have plenty of stories, but like going to a world championship and going into the locker room, and you see these adorable ladies like in their 70s squishing themselves into this $500 racing suit. And it's just so adorable, and you see everything. I'm like, I did not need to see all that, but it's just so funny. Like, I guess that competitive spirit doesn't go away. But watching
Yeah.
your grandmother trying to fit into those tight ass suits,
Yeah.
it scars you for life.
I know at some point I'll just be like, I'll just wear a regular suit. At this point in my career, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm saying that right now, but watch, I'll be one of those 70-year-olds, like 80, like still trying to fit into my Speedos.
I know, because today, like right now, there's some 16-year-old like, oh God, they still wear those suits? Like, probably. But yeah, that's a whole other experience that you don't get unless you're actually, a competitive swimmer trying to fit in those things.
Oh, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
But once
But
you're in, you're like, ooh, I'm so slick.
I know. You're like, God, I hope I don't have to pee later.
Oh,
Jeez,
God.
I'm not putting this thing back on.
It's just probably why the pool and these
I know.
mates get so dirty in 3 days. Everyone's like, how does the pool get so cloudy in 3 days? Well, let me tell you how many people just
Yeah.
pee in it.
Well, it's really hard to get the swimsuit back off.
There's more pee than pool water in there.
I know. At some point, did you ever have those? I know I had some friends in Michigan, mostly the boys, that would pee in the pool and then they try to squirt you with the water. Never, and they'd be like, I peed in that. And you're like, oh, come on.
Or
Like,
when
that was
they
just a way.
the one they come next to you and they just sit
Yeah.
there and like, do you feel the warmth? And they're like
I know.
splashing it towards you, like, oh yeah.
Stop it.
I don't know what's
But-
worse, that or the booze breath.
God, yeah. Especially in Michigan State when they had, like, the pool that didn't have very good ventilation and you just feel drunk after a while. You're like, "Well,
Yeah, man.
I need
I
to
take
breathe
the
some
pee
oxygen."
over the booze breath.
I agree. And I'm sure I was that person with the booze breath a couple times because I drank way too much my freshman year.
Ah,
It's a rite of passage
rite of
for
passage.
Americans, at least.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, I've been to those parties.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been to.
Sorry, my dog.
She agrees. He's like, I know what you did. I know what you
He's
did in
like, "God damn
college.
it." But, so getting back to our timeline of stuff, then after college and you moved to Boston, you decided to get back into master swimming, all
Mhm.
that other good stuff. What kinda took off even your social media stuff? Because I feel like almost now you've turned into this advocate for master swimming, which I freaking love. Because every time I see one of your posts and you're very artistic with showing, I don't even know how to put it into words, but the art of swimming and the
Mm.
love of it through visual representation, which I think is really freaking hard to do in a sport, especially like swimming, because it's so much in your head and technique and all other good stuff. But I think you do a really good job at that. So what kind of shifted that? Was it just something that happened or was it a goal?
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate that feedback. It was actually started out as a joke. That was like, excuse me, like pre-COVID. It was like around pre-COVID. One of my really good friends, he was always getting annoyed by the type of Instagrams that are out there for master swimming, the inappropriate techniques, and he was kind of fixated on this one person. I don't know why he was fixated on how like this one person became so wildly popular. And I don't want to use pronouns because I don't want, like I don't want to upset anybody. Like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
person just like, and then wonderful human being, but it was just not about the swimming. It was more about bodies and looks and suits and kind of bad technique. And I was like, why do you care so much? He cared so much. Like, he just kept bringing it up. And then one day, like, I think for Christmas, like, he presented me with a GoPro. I was like, you gotta have to do this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not gonna parade around the pool deck in my, like sex sells. Like for me, in order to get like
Mm,
this views, I'm gonna have to show, skin. And I just wasn't never me. It's just not me, right?
yeah.
So I just started doing it just for fun. And and then usually the craziest videos, the dumbest videos that really has nothing to do with swimming are the one that goes viral, right? Like, like
Yeah.
jump roping underwater. And it's like, oh my God, well, how'd you do that? I'm like, it's just a joke, right? But it just became kind of like, this is really a fun hobby. And then when I started getting positive feedbacks from people like about technique and how do you do this and then the races, it became more like a crusade. Like, all right, let's do this. And so right now I really love it. It's just a lot of work because you kind of
Mhm.
running out of ideas because I have done everything. Like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
But then every time like I'm about to quit, I get the feedback of how it's being, people get motivated and getting in the pool. And I think that's the beauty of master swimming. I don't think there are really many sports out there. And again, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but that you can do in your 90s, right? Because
Yeah.
if you run that late, your joints going to get hurting and the impact and yes, you can lift, but in overall health wise, I think swimming is just one of those sports that you could still do and compete at the highest level. And yeah, there are a few people out there who probably like lifting into their 90s, but it's, what I'm saying? It's just,
It's an
yeah,
anomaly.
you're not going to play football in your 90s,
Yeah,
tackle
no.
people. And it's just always, I've been inspired. Like every time I go to World's World Championship, I see this 92-year-old woman who does a 200 butterfly. And I look at her, I'm like,
Oh,
yeah, I want to be that person. If I ever live to my 90s, I want to die doing my 200 butterfly. That's how I want to go out. So, yeah. So
but in the middle of it or at the end of it? Do you wanna finish the race or you just wanna go in the middle of it?
at that point, I don't care. I would just feel bad for the people at the pool. Like, oh, let's close
Yeah,
the
I'd be like, "I'm
pool.
gonna traumatize you all."
Right. But I think that's what inspired me. So like it's just been a lot of fun and also the networking, like the connection you make with other swimmers through it. And
Mhm.
then I also like, believe it or not, I learn a lot. Like I learn a lot from other videos and coaches and social media got so big and then people like coaches are on it and giving you tips and it makes you like, oh, why didn't I not think of that? Because beautiful, like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then it's all constant debate, like, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing right. And I think there's no such thing in swimming because It's really about your body type, right? Like what your body's
Mm-hmm.
shape like, how tall you are, how short you are, how skinny you are, how big, like every
Yeah.
stroke is it's really how you adapt it to your own self. And is there a way to be more efficient and effective in the water? Of course, right? But it's constantly evolving. When I learned to swim, that's not how they taught. Like we didn't do rotations, like what you rotating your body, like we didn't. Like it was just
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful to see that how the sport constantly evolves. And I try to like reinforce that to other people. There's really no right or wrong way. You have to figure out how you become more efficient in the water. And what works for you. But yeah, so I definitely love that social media aspect of spreading that joy and technique and fun, and swimming is not just swimming in the pool. Like right now I'm exploring the open water. I'm exploring the ice swimming, right?
Yeah.
So there's always these fun ways to challenge yourself.
So what's next then? Do you have some sort of goals? I mean, for whatever. Like I know you always have something. You're like, all right, now I need to do this. So other than the Masters record that you're
Yeah,
working towards.
ever elusive record that will never come. Yeah, I can't live my life without goals. I think that's like one thing about swimming that's I love is that it gives me. I always have to have something to work for,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of nice. So right now I have a 10K coming up in Miami, ocean swim. So I'm
Oh
training for
wow.
that. I really want to go to the ice swim nationals. Hopefully I can qualify. I don't even know how you qualify with that, but that's my target in January in DC. And I think those are the big ones upcoming. And then I have Masters Nationals. There is this fabulous open water race festival in Spain next May. I would like
Oh.
to go to that. And then Pan American's gonna be in Argentina in October next year. So like I have like, okay, where can I go
Yeah.
and travel? And so I'm privileged enough to be able to do that.
So do you travel a lot overseas?
I won't say a lot, but at least once a year I'll plan on something, right? Whether it's towards the Hungary, like so
Yeah.
Masters World's gonna be back in Hungary in 2027. So I'm super
Oh
excited
wow.
about that. So I can go home and visit. But I like traveling overseas when it's the Worlds or Pan Americans. I went to Colombia and I wouldn't go to Colombia otherwise, right? Like so that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about swimming. Swimming opens for me at least opportunities to go and see another world without like why would I ever want to go to Colombia? Right? Sure, like
Mm-hmm.
that some people love to travel, but hey, to go with a group of people and get to know the country and swim and race. It's just been kind of a blessing. And I didn't go this Singapore. I was a little too far, but I did go to Doha to Qatar last
Wow.
year. So like, when would I ever
That's
go?
awesome.
When would I ever go
Yeah.
to the Middle East? So you get to see parts of the world. Otherwise, you wouldn't. And just like I know I've been talking a lot, but just to piggyback that community of swimming, like I went to
Mm-hmm.
Doha to reunite and meet people from Hungary. That's the last place. Like I met these water polo players. Like a couple of them, I grew up with them. Like oh my god, right? Like I
Yeah.
haven't seen you in 20 years, but there you are in Qatar.
Wow. So you didn't know they were going to be there? You just saw them when you went?
No, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't. I mean, I knew one of them very well from childhood, and they were in the elevator, and these big, water polo players come in, and like in the back, and they're like talking shit in Hungarian, and I started giggling, and they're like, "Do you speak Hungarian?" I'm like, "I am Hungarian." But yeah, and then some of my swimmer friends were there too. Like I did not know they're gonna be there, who I actually grew up with in the same club. So yeah, so it's the
Yeah.
community of swimming is still pretty small.
Yeah. I
You
concur.
should come back into it.
So how was it? Sorry, I could keep asking you questions all
Yeah,
day. I'll try to cut it off at a
yeah.
certain point here. But how was it seeing those team members from forever ago when you actually went back and saw them, or surprisingly saw them? Did you guys kind of reminisce and correctly identify the crap that happened? And you're like, hey, we were good for getting through it, or did you guys just kind of skim over it? Like
You
how
know,
was that?
that's a good question. That's such a contentious subject because we each, we can experience situations very differently, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there is a few of them who, like at least one person I know, like she's been traumatized. She would never come out and say, this is what happened to me. And she had it way worse than me. Let's just put it that way. So like with her, I can very much talk openly. And she tells me stories. Actually, she told me stories recently that I didn't even know that shocked me to the core. And if I had the power to do something about it, I would.
Hmm.
but it's not, I can't talk for her. Also, you have to know, like, we live in a climate that if you say something, why now? That's going to be the first question. Why didn't you say anything then? Why now?
Yeah.
Or, or you're making things up. And then the person who are we talking about is sits pretty high still in the swing community. He's one of the top guy. So how the heck did he get there? But like what
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, so her and I experienced very similar. We had very similar experience. I also been there the longest because I told you I went to the club at 1985. So like I was there before these group of kids came much later. So I've seen people who left, who've been traumatized and never came back to swim, right? And then I have a girl who's, I think she, it's interesting to you. Like, I never heard of her talking about it, but from behind the scene, like, like I'm talking with another person of mine, like, wow, do you remember when, like, we literally just talked about, like, this one woman, she was in her teens. She was, my friend was like, do you remember when she was dating this soccer player? I'm like, yeah, I remember. Like, it was a big time soccer or football, right? Hungarian football soccer player, and they're gods. And it's like, yeah, like, well, remember, like, it was our coach who kind of instigated that relationship. And it's like, let's put it this way: she was very early teen, and he was very in the 20s. The age group, the age was very different, and the fact that he kind of facilitated their relationship says a lot, right? And so, and then another friend of mine who, like, now she has daughters, and she's like, yeah, like, she had a relationship with a coach there, and she was in her early teen, like, 14 to 16. Like, I remember, like, we talked about losing your virginity. Like, I don't remember it was 14 or 15, but he was in his mid-30s. Everyone knew. No one said anything about it. And she never, like, really looked at it that way. But now she's, like, looking back, and, like, I have a daughter that age, like, WTF, right? Like, so again, like, but then I have kids there, like, why I'm saying it's a contentious subject, because I have swimmers there who idolize him still. Like, he's like a big, like, in their eyes, he's the best thing ever happened, and they're friends with him, and they're Facebook friends. I'm like, how did you not experience the same? Like, how is your world is either like you're in denial or you haven't experienced, what I have experienced. Maybe he treated you differently. So again, you could have a relationship with a coach, and different, like, maybe you're just oblivious of what else is happening there.
Do you think that coach now has like a standard that he has to follow, and before it was like all freedom, so he could do whatever, and now there's a standard, so it's like, okay, I have to have a different relationship?
I mean, again, I don't want to single out this one coach because this was generally the culture, right? So like the culture at that time in Hungary was this, like, everyone experienced very similar situations I did, some people even worse, right? So let me put it this way, right now in Hungary, recently got a book published of a coach who was an Olympic coach for a lot of amazing Olympians, like, hands down, like, the best Hungarian men swimmers trained under him. And then one of my coach, who sits pretty high, and with two other, they decided to publish a book kind of like commemorating and idolizing how amazing this coach was. This coach is a convicted felon. He convicted pedophile because he abused almost every single one of them sexually, right?
Jesus.
And I knew that when I was a kid in 14. Like, I knew that because we were sitting and talking and drinking and hanging out, and we're talking about, like, people like, oh, like, they didn't make the team because they weren't bending, like, they weren't giving in for his, sexual needs, or they're, like, or we knew as kids, right? So like, it became a big deal 20 years later, and he, like, he got convicted of it, and it's a well-known knowledge. We'll talk about the morality of a country that who actually literally publishes a book idolizing the person, and then they're claiming, well, this is about a coach, and maybe looking at his coaching career. But I'm like, how can you separate the two? How can you say, like, this is the coach, right? Or who we have to look up to, who basically abused physically and sexually almost every single of his swimmers in one way or in one capacity or another. So, like, what I'm saying is, because this is, like, the culture, it's not like that. But when your leadership is still that generation, it's going to trickle down, right? The leadership always trickles down to the young ones. I got lucky.
It takes a while.
I escaped. I got lucky. I got here at 17, so I have no room to say anything. I'm so grateful to the universe to the people who made that happen that I had a way out. So
Well,
many
your
times.
accomplishments also got you there. Okay. I mean, like, yeah, things came into play, but you worked your ass off to also, let that door appear to be able to
Yeah.
walk through it. So,
Yeah.
no, don't downplay how awesome you are. Okay.
Well, thank you. Well, when are you joining Master Swimming? You swam
Uh,
for a while. I followed your career. You got back to the pool in a little bit.
yeah, they have this thing called the World Police and Fire Games,
Mhm.
and they have it in Australia in a couple years, or next year. But I got my shoulder torn out in jiu-jitsu, so they just put it back together. So I still can't really swim that great yet.
Is that
But I'm getting
surgery?
back in. What's that?
Is that through surgery?
Yeah, that was that surgery. I just broke a bone, ripped like all the things out. I went to the doctor and I was like, so how is it? He's like, well, you're a 10. I'm like, well, thank you. And he's like, no, you're 10 out of 10 because of how bad you fucked up your shoulder. I was like, well, damn it. I was going to take the compliment. Guess not.
Oh my God, I love it. Oh.
So yeah,
Yeah,
but it's getting
I know.
back
Like
there,
that's where my head went. Like, with the Coach Mo, like on a 1 to 10 scale.
Like, and plus, being in my 40s, I will take the compliment. And it's like, no. It's not a compliment.
Oops.
It's okay.
Ouch.
But no, I'm getting back, and honestly, your stuff, following your stuff on your platform helps me remember, like, hey, this is a beautiful sport, and I want to get back to it when I can here soon. Hopefully, not to your level, will not be there, but enough to at least compete and have some fun with it. But I don't want to take all your morning either, but.
Sorry, I talked a lot.
No, I freaking loved it. I was enthralled. I'm just sitting here. I'm forgetting I'm supposed to be a host. I'm like, ooh, I'm in it.
I have so many angry stories, I guess. I need to let that anger.
We'll just do Ilty part 1. Ilty.
The feist, or whatever Coach said.
Little fire in her.
The fire is coming at you.
I mean, and I've said this almost in every one of them. I think those ones that haven't, like, you don't want bad things to happen to people, but also think those people that have just cruised through life, that have been given everything, one, they're just not that interesting, and two, it's so they don't appreciate the good stuff either because they don't know how bad it can be, so.
Yeah, definitely gives you fuel to, yes, I can. Like,
Yeah.
you tell me I can, watch me.
Yeah. Please tell me I can't, because I definitely will.
Well, it's also like we have to redefine success. Like I think success is not necessarily one person's definition, right? Like I agree. Like my coach would say, I'm never going to be successful in the terms of I'm never going to be an Olympian. And he was right, but I don't know that's, how we have to define success for a 15-year-old and tell them they're not going to amount to anything.
Yeah.
It's what is success for you? Like for me, being able to get up at 6 a.m. and go to the lake and no one's there. It's quiet. It's a 68-degree water, just only the steam coming off the water. And for me, that's being there at mid-40s and rocking it. For me,
I love your romanticism with swimming.
It's the best marriage I've ever had. We had our divorce, the moment of contention, but we always come back with each other and it just, gives back what you give in. Yeah, I think I definitely romanticize this.
Which, kind of goes back to the whole, like, I'm in awe with a lot of people in the world for different things and different friends that I've gotten to know over the years. But with how you start out with swimming and then the turmoil and then coming to the States and, coming up through the ranks, so to speak, in swimming and different things. The way that you kind of came full circle to make the sport what you originally wanted it to be with the love and everything of it, I would think a lot of people would just decide to write it off and be like, no, that's a chapter in my life, let me close it. But you loved it from the start, like you're talking about jumping in with your clothes on, like all in at 3, like, oh, got it. Like you didn't let bad shit take something you loved from you. And that says a lot about you. I mean, in defiance and in dedication. Like, no, screw you, I'm going to keep doing this because I love this. And you turned it into something beautiful that impacts other people, especially on, your influence with social media and other things in your book, which, what's the title of your book again? I want to link it in this so I can put it out there.
It's called Unattached. There was a play on words with swimming, right? Like going places unattached. A lot of people think it has to do with relationships, but it was mostly about swimming. But it was my therapy. Like, I mean, it's not it's just, putting ideas down. For me, that was coming to terms with, a lot, and it just cheaper than therapy.
Yeah.
My one takeaway is looking back in my career is the people, right? Like you do not appreciate you might not appreciate the people who are in it with you at that time, but they really like, it's all about friendship and community. From my sister on to pushing me to, to my sister, my cousin, who always been there for me ever since, from the get-go, and through my angst, and her then boyfriend who had, her first husband who got me to the US, and then to people like Pete Williams, to G, to Richard Bader, to Mo. Even, like John Munley, like kids in the team, right? I keep in touch with still. And then even now, like going back to Hungary and reuniting with those kids, and just the people you meet on the way, masters, it's what makes this community. What I love about swimming is these people belong to the swimming community. These people who are going to be part of my life, who shaped my life and have privilege, like it is the people who help you elevate you, right? Not that you have to focus on those people who elevate you. And maybe that's why I want to give back. I became a teacher. I became a special education advocate. Like, how can I help elevating people instead of like putting them down, right? Like giving back to the world in some ways.
Well, I think you have in a lot more ways than you have given back and inspired a lot of people. And that's just from just me seeing what you've done. So thank you for that.
Thanks for your time, and thank you for letting me be in your platform.
Hey, and if you ever want an LD part 2.
Oh,
thanks again, and
let's be. Yeah. Can we stay in touch? I would love that.
Yes, and if you ever, head down this, I plan on visiting Boston at some point. It's like on my list. I've never been, and I've always wanted to go.
Well, you have a place to stay. I have an extra room. You're welcome.
Heck yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
See ya. Anyone looking to follow Ildi and her journey, she has a social media platform on most platforms, I think, but I'm that old person that doesn't really have all the platforms. She goes by Swimplify, SWIMPLIFLY, and she posts some of the best videos I've ever seen in swimming. And if you guys like this podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, or if you hate it too. I mean, who doesn't love a good rivalry, right?